Hey y'all, it's Dark Sugar Podcast coming to you fresh out the packet with everything black.
Hey y'all, it's Kiana with Dark Sugar Podcast, and honestly, I'm so glad to be doing this episode right now, guys. I've really been so appreciative of everyone's support on my podcast. I've had people reaching out to me, making sure I'm good, sending me love, telling me how much they enjoy this platform. And I realize I have to, in order to make this something sustainable for me, I really have to remember why I made this podcast in the first place and how it was originally. And for me, this podcast is really just my outlet. And I had to just remember what it was from the beginning. I felt like I got so tied up in like podcasting, quote unquote, and it just became like weird. If I'm being so honest, it got weird, it got overwhelming, and I felt like my ego got in the way. I was looking at who liked this, who's sharing this. Oh no, what if people don't like me anymore? What would people? But no, I've had so much support that has been leaning towards the opposite of that. I've been having urges to record lately, and I have some things coming in the works, but I honestly just wanted to do a mental health check-in, which I do often, and I feel like this episode, I'm trying to think of a title where it's the theme, what's the vibe, but it's kind of like outgrowing, not just like other people, but outgrowing yourself. I feel like your old sense of self and being kinder, what self-love really is. And then also just positive thinking, but not in a negative way. It's because I feel like a lot of people are on this like toxic positivity train, and I've tried to do it and it just doesn't vibe. So honestly, you guys, the last couple of months for me have been, like for a lot of people, strenuous, stressful, emotional in like a heartbreaking way. And I feel like I'm gonna try not to cry. Ew. Okay, hold on. I feel like I'm doing a lot of grieving right now. And I've done episodes on grief, what grieving is, how you can grieve even when someone hasn't died or when someone hasn't passed away. Like we grieve when we move, we grieve when we are no longer as close to somebody or friends with anybody. We grieve when we have to change jobs. We grieve when we move somewhere. Did I already say that? But yeah, we grieve when we move somewhere. So grief is it's a wide range of things that can occur. And I think lately I've been grieving parts of myself that either were no longer serving me or it's just time to grow. Like I'm 28 years old. Some parts of myself were cultivated when I was 22 and 23. And I'll be dead ass. I'll look at pictures from when I was 22 and 23 and I'm like, why can't I get back to this? Like, like either it's the way I looked or a vibe that I had or something. And I think recently I connected the fact that I'm grieving when I was kind of on autopilot and didn't know everything I know now and was not as emotionally awakened as I am now, because I don't know, I feel like I'm outgrowing a lot of parts of myself. And because I could say it like, oh, I'm outgrowing people. We're just outgrowing them. But it's almost like it's something deeper, where I've noticed that a lot of my relationships I cultivated when I was at a certain space. And now that I'm moving out of that space, it's like that relationship no longer vibes, or it no longer vibes the way it was. It needs to be rearranged. This person needs to be moved around. I need to, pull back some of my energy, can't have the same energy as I did in this relationship. And I think things like that, I'm so fucking sensitive. I'm learning to just give myself love in that area and not be so irritated by my own sensitivity. But I'm so sensitive that shifts in relationships kind of jolt me. and they like make me feel, why am I finna cry, guys? Yo. But anyway, they make me feel like a type of way. And I'm just really giving myself love in these areas. I've spoken about people pleasing. I'm a recovering people pleaser, or what the fuck ever. And I'm learning to really please myself, because I think people pleasing is a paradox, right? It's like we're like, oh, we have to make you happy. Meanwhile, we're miserable. Meanwhile, the relationship isn't a true give and take, or I'm not helping in a healthy way. So it's kind of like, if I truly care about helping people in a selfless way, it just doesn't make any sense. And it makes a paradox where you have resentment, and this person in a way can't even love you for the full you, because you're giving so much of yourself away. And I'm really releasing a lot of these people pleasing behaviors, because I'm seeing where I'm kind of like stuck, right? I kind of feel stuck, and feeling stuck and realizing that I feel stuck is just, it's so disheartening. I've seen so many of now don't get me wrong, I feel like I'm doing really well and I have a lot coming for me and going for me. But I notice I propel and I'm super successful when I have more balance in my friendships. And once they start to get out of balance, in friendships and relationships too, once things get out of balance, I feel like I start to take steps back. And I'm not, it's literally like, I don't know why I thought of this. It's literally like molasses in my path. Like, it slows me down and makes things sticky, and it's hard to move forward. And I'm not blaming anybody. It's really my own thing, but it goes against my conditioning of giving so much of myself away to feel important, to feel validated, to feel needed, right? Because my ego likes to a certain degree, my ego likes to be needed. So it's like, if someone's calling me all the time, I'm like, oh my God, they need me, so I must be important because they need me. But it's like, no, Kiana, you need you. Like, fuck this person, not in a rude way, but like, fuck this person. They'll be fine. They can call somebody else. They can get a therapist. They can do something else. You don't have to answer the phone today, or you don't have to answer that text today. You don't have to drop everything you wanted to do today to cater to somebody else. Now, if I'm good, if I'm healthy, if I feel like I have everything I need to do done, I'm in a good space, I feel relaxed. If you want to call me with something major, sure. If I finish my to-do list and you're like, girl, I need something, like, I need some, I can't even think of the word. I need to vibe with somebody. Do you have space to hold for me to vent or walk me through the situation? And it's like, yeah, but I've been noticing that lately I'll drop shit and I'll abandon myself when I really needed my energy for me. And it's like, I can only do that so much, like so many times. And I'm really just seeing how I'm so sick of this pattern. And I'm over the blame game stage. I went through that a couple years ago when I was just like, oh, this person this person that. They take advantage of me. Da, 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 da. And I saw this one quote, and then I posted it on Twitter. I'm going to find it and post it again. But it was like, did they take advantage of you, or were you volunteering? Because it's hard. It's just like a fine line of taking accountability, right? Because I do feel like it's like, yes, you can be emotionally abused, mentally abused, all these things, but in the same breath, I feel like I have to take accountability. And it's like, it's almost like someone has, I'm trying to make a good analogy here. It's almost like, I don't know. It's kind of like someone has like fire in their hands, right? And you're like, oh, okay, they have fire. And then they tell you, oh, I won't burn you. or like, oh, it's safe, and you're like, oh, okay, and you get closer to that person and they burn you, and you're like, oh, okay, like, what the fuck? And then it happens again where you see a person and they have fire and they're like, oh, I won't burn you, da da da, and you're like, you keep doing it. That's what I feel like I'm doing. I feel like there are signs that I'm ignoring, and then I run into that person, and then the same thing happens, and I'm like, well, they're the one that this, they're the one, and I'm just tired of doing that. I'm tired of being a victim, and I've been in victim mode for a minute with some of my relationships, and I'm just so tired of doing it. I'm tired. And I feel like the universe has been just giving me so many signs. Like, hey, bitch, and I feel like, and this is something that I've been telling my friends, we're not in college anymore where shit was kind of cute. It's like, I'm 28, I'm almost 30. Shit is just going to get more, the situations are just going to get more and more serious as I get older. My mom is getting older. My parents are getting older. They can't bail me out. They're less and less able to really hold for me the older I get. And the situations that I'm getting myself in are only going to get worse as I get older. Like, shit is getting way more serious than it was when I was in college. And it was just like, oh, like, I'm experimenting, or like whatever the fuck I was telling myself. Like, these red flags are getting redder. Like, as we get older, for real. It's not how it used to be for us. And so I'm really seeing where I need to take these signs more and more seriously. And as I'm taking my life more and more seriously, and getting off of autopilot is really showing me that your life matters. And I literally feel like my brain, like, when I initially started to get off autopilot, it was like 3.5 years ago. I started doing EMDR, and it was about 2021. So it was 2 years ago when I was telling a friend, a coworker, I was telling her, like, girl, colors are brighter. I can hear better. I can see better. Like, I literally feel like a fog is being lifted off of my face. And that's a symptom also of neuroplasticity, when your brain, basically, you're making new connections, dots are clicking, you're growing and you're learning. And I felt like for a while my brain wasn't doing that. And I remember talking to my mom about that. And she's like, yeah, I noticed that it kind of felt like she's like, I'm not calling you stupid, but your brain, like, you weren't, I was kind of like stuck mentally at one space, in one spot. And so it literally kind of feels like I'm adjusting to the world again. Everything feels so new to me, and I'm adjusting, and I'm seeing where, like, my body wants to continue doing these patterns, but my brain is kind of like, because I'm telling you I don't like doing this, right? And I'm telling y'all how I'm sick of this, but my brain's still like, oh, but we want to make them happy, and making them happy, and people pleasing. I know exactly where it comes from. It comes from my parents, and me just being like, oh, I need to make my parents happy to survive. Which, yes, at one point, maybe that was true in some fashion, but now it's like, no, you're living. You don't need to do that. Feeling somebody's disappointment doesn't make, because I'm an empath, so I can feel when someone's disappointed and sad, and that literally, it's like, well, I wouldn't want to feel sad, so I don't want to make them sad, and da-da-da. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's like, look at where that's getting you. I'm so fucking over it. I'm over that. And I just want to move on from that. I am moving on from that space. But the journey of moving from that space, you guys, is so hard. But today, the feeling that I feel of giving too much of my energy and not putting up boundaries, it's literally like fucking me up. I'm being so serious. I'm done. And I will update you in a month or two with another mental check-in, and I'll tell you where I am with this. But as of right now, I'm so tired. I'm so tired of it. I really, really am. And, with the self-love thing Because in high school, guys, I hated myself. And I would tell people I hate myself. And as I get older, I'm seeing how I meant that shit. Like, that was true. But as I'm getting older, I see where self-hate, how destructive that is, not only to yourself, but everyone around you. Because if you hate yourself, you're just projecting that energy onto other people. You don't respect other people. You're very selfish. This could go into, this could lean into narcissism for sure. But like, if you hate yourself and you have shame, you cannot hold deep, healthy relationships that have opportunity for growth, right? And probably I remember my senior year of college, I was expressing to my therapist this hate that I was recognizing that was inside me, from high school. And she was just like, wow. And I said, how long is it going to take me to undo this? And she said, it could take years. It could take a while. And to be honest, guys, I didn't start actively doing my self-love practice until last year in November, December. That's when I actively started being like, I love myself. I love myself. I love you, Kiana. I'm so proud of you. Wow, Kiana, you're so beautiful. Wow, Kiana, like, you are a light to everyone you touch. Oh, Kiana, you're amazing. Like, you can accomplish your goals. You have the skills. You can, all your dreams are coming true with the power that you have within you. You have amazing friends who support you. Like, I didn't start talking to myself like that till last year. And let me tell you, things that I go through now aren't as heavy when I do that. People's criticisms, how people treat me, their projections onto me, they don't soak in as deep because I have this built up self-love, and I'm able to be like, we don't like that. That's not for me. This doesn't make me feel good. I'm uncomfortable. So I feel like the self-love mixed with outgrowing myself is kind of merging together onto this one journey, because I'm really seeing where the external validation thing, I'm not saying that's bad. We like external validation. Like, you want to know, you like to know that people like you, or if they like you, or da-da-da. Some people are like, I don't care that people like me. Yes, you do. Because if everyone didn't like you, I'm sure that would be like alarming in some fashion. Like, you know what I mean? But they're saying they're not pressed about it, which I get. But external validation at work, you're doing a good job, from your parents, we're so proud of you, from your partner, you're so beautiful, I love you, whatever. That's fine. But searching for your sense of self outside of yourself, that's what I was doing for the longest time. And I felt a lot of my relationships were reflecting that, because people would make me upset. I would get disappointed. I put them on the pedestal, and then they fall off, and I'd be like, fuck you, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, no, Kiana, no one can fill this inside that you're trying to get them to fill on the outside. Like, this is your thing that you have to fill up. And myself, I've done some research. There's a really good TED Talk. I can't remember the lady's name, but shit. Oh, can I find it? Hold on. This is me not having things prepared. Let me see, guys. Hold on. There's this really good TED Talk. Uno momento. Cultivating. Okay, I found it. It's called Cultivating Unconditional Self-Worth by Adia Gooden on TED Talk. It's a beautiful TED Talk. I really, really enjoyed it. And she was basically saying that your self-worth doesn't ever move. It stays the same. Now, your self-esteem, that can fluctuate. But your self-worth, being worthy of love, being worthy of success, being worthy of happiness and beauty and adventures and whatever the fuck you want, that never changes. But your self-esteem, like, maybe I got yelled at work. I come home and I'm like, oh, I'm not in a good mood. Maybe I'm not as good as a performer as I thought I would. Like, oh, I feel kind of dumb. Like, da-da-da-da-da. Like, that light stuff. Okay, but if I'm like, oh my God, I am worthless, I suck, like, no one ever in the world should hire me because I'm so stupid and I suck and no one's gonna ever see my potential at work, and why am I such a bad person? That's leaning towards like more self-worth. So all of a sudden I'm the worst employee ever, and I think that maybe for like days, like shit like that. Or if a guy doesn't like you, you think, oh, like the core, something that has to do with your sense of self. What's wrong with me? I'll never love again. I'm not lovable. Like that shit. And so I've really been working towards cultivating my self-worth and making it more stable and not so much teeter-tottering based on who is treating me a certain way. And it's been really hard but I'm grateful for every relationship that I've had, because if anything, it's built me up to where I am now and where I'm going, which is a strong woman who knows their worth, knows they're beautiful, knows they're smart, knows that I'm a student of life. I have a lot to teach, to give, and I have a lot to learn. And that's my happy space. That shit makes me happy. I make me happy. Anybody else can add to it. That's beautiful. But just not wavering in who I am and what I bring to the table. And that's what, even like saying that is making me tear up, because I never thought I'd be able to talk about myself like that. I've been surrounded by other people who talk about themselves like that. But, you know, hearing that from me is just like crazy, because I never thought, like I told you guys, I literally used to hate myself. And so I'm a work in progress. We're working on boundaries over here, because that's another thing that I've noticed that I do that's really annoying. I like won't have any boundaries, and then I'll blame the person for taking advantage. They took advantage of me, and it's like, well, you didn't put up any boundaries. You know, like some people, like, yes, you should let go of them, but I can see how some relationships would be fine if I would just put up some boundaries and make it how it benefits me a little more and makes me feel safe. So, you know, it's really hard. I don't like hurting other people's feelings, and you know, I can be conflict avoidant in some way, and I can come across like sometimes passive aggressive, and it's not cute. It's not really cute. But I also know that I'm just very compassionate. I'm kind. I can still get my points across and be kind, you know? It doesn't have to be like catty or gross or rude or hurtful. Some people might take it like that, because I can be the nicest person in the world and somebody will still get offended. So that's not my job, you know? But it's rough out here. And being positive. I've been studying detachment recently. And what I'll do is, and this is so helpful, what I'll do is I'll picture something in my mind that I want. I'll move as if it already happened. But to detach out loud, I'll be like, I don't give a shit. I'll literally be like, okay, let me give you guys an example. So I teach during the school year. I had a bunch of plans. Oh, this is going to happen. I'm going to get money from here. Blah, 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 blah. I'm going to get money from my school because I'm in college right now. I'm getting my master's. So I'm going to get money from there. I'll do this. So many things fell through. And I literally found myself halfway through the summer needing a job. And job hunting, searching for a job, getting a job, that shit is the most stressful thing for me. And I was just literally like, oh my God, I don't have a job. I have all this shit coming up. How am I supposed to do this? And I applied for some jobs. And I remember just laying on my bed, and a homegirl of mine was talking about how she's really been practicing not worrying about things. And she noticed that when she doesn't care, whatever she wants will come to her faster. And I had heard this before. I've been watching some detachment videos, how to detach. And I would watch them still not getting how they detach. And they would explain it the best they could, probably very well. And I would just be like, oh, I still don't get it. And she would just be like, yeah, I just don't give a shit. Like, I don't care. And I'm like, yeah, I don't give a fuck about finding a job. I don't care. And I'm not saying like in a mean way, I don't give a fuck. I'm just saying like, I'll be good no matter what happens. Therefore, I don't give a shit. And me saying I don't care, I'm literally saying I don't care about the outcome or where this job comes from. I'm not going to worry about what kind of job it is, what the pay is, right? So literally, I'm in bed and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a shit about, I don't care about this job. And literally, right as I'm saying that, like maybe 5 minutes later, my mentor calls me and she's like, are you working over the summer? And I'm like, no. And she's like, okay, hold on. And she hangs up. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So then she calls me back and she's like, I have a job for you. Like, do you have any experience in caregiving? And I was like, yeah, I used to volunteer for hospice for like a year in high school. And she was like, perfect. So she hooked me up with this caregiving gig. Y'all, she called me out of nowhere. We have never talked about this before. She didn't know I was looking for a job, nothing. And that is not the first time that has happened. That's happened another time last year. Same with a job. I found myself in the same position. Teachers don't I needed a job over the summer. The same thing was going on. I'm applying for all these jobs. And I remember crying. I'm at my homegirl's house last year, crying. And I was like, I don't have a job. I feel lazy. I'm not contributing to society. Oh my God. And I'm crying. And finally, there was this moment in my spirit was like, girl, if you cry anymore, you're about to explode. Like if you stress about this anymore, you're going to explode. And I remember just giving it to God. I'm like, you know what, God, I'm going to just trust you. I have to just let this go, because if I keep stressing about this, I'm going to have a mental breakdown. Minutes after I do this spiritually, a lady calls. I did not even apply for this job. A lady called from the district at my school and said, hey, we need help at the front desk. What are you doing this summer? I did not even talk to this lady, and I hadn't even applied for this job. She just called me out of nowhere. So honestly, me not giving a fuck has been so helpful. And I'm really trying to even cultivate that now, even with these relationships. Tell myself, I send these people love. Do I know how I'm going to do this, or how this is going to happen, or which way, like how this is going to show up for me, or what to do? I'm like, you know what? I send them love. My intention is just more boundaries and self-love for myself. I don't care about how they feel, whatever. I'm more focused on aligning with what makes me happy. And one thing that makes me happy is doing these mental check-ins with y'all. So I'm like, you better stop worrying about these people and do what you're here to do. Do what brings you joy. Do what makes you, you know what I mean? Like, and that goes back into the people pleasing thing. I'm too focused on other people, not focused on what I need to do for myself. And there just it's more about balance. It's more about feeling safe with other people, And so I've just been, anytime I'm really worried about something, I set my intention, I pray, and then I'm like, I don't give a shit. That's what I've been doing. That's what I think detachment is. I really don't care. And just being cool with that, because another thing that I've been studying with law of attraction vibes is how you need to face whatever you want. You need to face the fear of the opposite of that if you feel a block. So like, let's say, even for me with these jobs, right? So the caregiving job that I have. So when I was super stressed and I was like, oh my God, I need a job, I kind of I'm like, okay, what's your fear? Why are you so stressed? And I'm like, well, the fear is if I don't get a job this summer. And I was like, okay, you don't get a job. Let's sit in that for a second. You don't have a job. You'd never get one. And in my head, I was kind of like, well, I could do Uber Eats. I could do DoorDash. I was kind of like, okay, I'll be fine. And I had to really tell myself, face the fear of not, and telling myself, you'll be fine. And I was just like, okay, I'll be fine. No matter what. It was like, no matter what happens, it was like, I don't need this. And I was like releasing need from that. situation, and I was kind of low-key acting like I already had a job. So there was nothing to worry about. Because to me, it goes in a cycle like this, right? If you're spiritual, so it's like, spiritually, I'm an infinite being. God always takes care of me. God will never put me in a situation that I can't handle. He's my rock, whatever. The universe always got me. The universe always provides, la, la, la. So if you think these things, when you excessively worry or stress, it creates resistance. And to be honest, my grandmother used to say that worrying is a sin. She's like, if God got you and you're worrying, you're sinning against him. Why worry if God got you? She's like, that doesn't make any sense. And I would just be like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, that doesn't make sense. And so really me facing that fear and releasing it, I just feel like it brought everything faster, And really just sitting in a positive space. I think, to be honest, okay, so like I have a diagnosis of bipolar, right? And the psychiatrist at the time were like, you have high traits of borderline personality disorder. He's like, but I'm just going to write bipolar so your insurance will be more like cooperative. And I was like, all right. And then I've had someone say like, do you have borderline? Like, it sounds like you have borderline, or like, and I'm like, I don't know. But on paper, bipolar, I do identify with quiet borderline, which is something new that people are talking about. But why am I talking about this? Hold on. Why am I talking? Wait, I can't remember my point. Hold on, y'all. Why am I talking about borderline and bipolar? I don't remember. Anyway, well, I'll just talk about this. I've been really identifying with quiet borderline. Oh, okay, I know why I'm talking about this. I've been identifying with quiet borderline recently, and I feel like it's been making the ups and downs of my emotion, which can happen with bipolar too, which is why they diagnosed me with that. But the ups and downs of my emotions have been more manageable the more I've been able to stay positive and neutral. Not to say that I don't have my days where I'm like really emotional. That was today. I've been like crying on and off all day. And I probably will cry myself to sleep later, if I'm being honest. So it's coming out, but it's not like rocking my world to the point where like I think I'm gonna die, or everybody hates me, or like things like that aren't really happening. It's more like me just purging emotion, which I think is really healthy. Pero yeah, I think thinking positively. And hey, okay, sorry, I didn't mean to yell at you guys. So what, and here everyone, and see, there are so many things out there of law of attraction, how to manifest, how to detach, how to whatever. And I think I don't really think there's like a right way. I think you just have to find what works for you, because the longest I was like searching which way, how do I do this? But I'm like, okay, I'm just finding, like me saying, I don't give a fuck. I was telling my mom about that because we study very similar things. And she was like, I don't give a fuck. Like, you don't care. Like, what do you mean you don't care? And I was like, hey, it might not work for you, but how to detach, that works for me, And so with positive thinking, one thing that really works for me is not only releasing the fear of whatever it is, but Abraham Hicks, if you're not familiar with Abraham, Esther/Abraham Hicks, is that I think of thoughts that feel good. Cause she's always like, why are you guys thinking of things that don't feel good? Like in terms of how to control your mind and how to be aligned with what I want. She's like, you apply for your job and then for 3 days you think about not getting it. You see, I can't think of another example, but you just like, we're thinking of things that we don't want. And if you think of them that much, then you're attracting what you don't want, not what you want. So sometimes I find myself overthinking. I'm the beast at making up scenarios. I'll make up the most negative scenario to like hurt my own feelings or something. But I'll catch myself because I'll tell my therapist, oh, I don't like, when I think about this, it makes me sad. Or when I think about this, it hurts my feelings. And she's like, stop thinking about that. And I'm like, oh, bitch, it's not that easy. But low key, it kind of is. So that's another positive thing that I've been doing. I just think about what I want. Like, don't think about having a bad day. Think about having a good day regardless of what happens. Don't think about that person not liking you. Think about all your good traits and how they probably will like you. But also recognize if they don't, you'll be fine. Like, positive in that way. And another thing I have to say about positive thinking that I've been doing is I've been fighting my emotions. I've been thinking about what my emotions mean instead of just feeling it, letting it go, and coming up with a conclusion and then just letting it go. Because like for days I'll be angry about something and I'm thinking about that I'm angry, why I'm angry. No. So instead of that, I'll be thinking about the scenario that made me angry instead of just being like, I'm angry. This is why I'm angry. This is how I'm angry. This is who I'm angry at. This is how it makes me feel. Blah, 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 blah. Conclusion, done. I'll like ruminate on the situation sometimes instead of just facing my emotion and sitting with it. And instead of trying to, what I'll do is I'll try to change my emotion. And I'm like, well, I shouldn't feel like this. So and I'll try to change it instead of being like, no, this is how I feel, subjective. And then what can I do about this? What are the who, what, whys, and whatever, more objective. And so it's definitely just a balance, and it's been helping with the borderline bipolar, whatever I got going on. It's been helpful. So yeah, y'all, take it easy. Let's be kind to ourselves. I'm learning how to be more kind to myself and not freaking the fuck out about every emotion that comes up within myself. I've just been giving myself a lot of love, giving my inner child, little Kiana, a lot of love. Because usually when I feel overwhelmed and detached from myself, my inner child's like, what about me? I need you. And so I've been having to really connect. And with my inner teenager, because y'all, I didn't know about the inner teenager. We have inner teenagers. Ooh. And these inners that people talk about, inner child, inner whatever, those parts of yourself develop when you have significant trauma, that part of you. So if you had significant childhood trauma, your inner child would probably be really loud because that's a part of yourself that's been arrested at that stage. And if you have an inner teenager, you've had trauma as a teenager that has arrested a part of yourself, your spirit, your ego, whatever you want to call it, at that age. Because I remember asking Joy, a therapist that I had on the show, maybe like a year ago, I was like, why is my inner child so loud? And that's her explanation, what makes a lot of sense. And I saw this quote that says, I tell myself I love me, but I won't say it back. My inner teenager won't say it back. I'll be like, I love you, Kiana. And I'll just look at me and be like, okay. And I'm like, little bit, say it back. But yeah, giving my parts love and my self-love, especially on a bad day, guys. Like today, I'm like, I love you, Kiana. You're purging. I'm so proud of you for letting out your feelings. These are things that we want to do differently. How can we do things differently? It's okay. And I treat myself like I would one of my students. Like if my students having a bad day and they don't do anything super crazy to get them in trouble, but I can just tell maybe emotionally they're struggling, I would pull them aside. Hey, what's wrong? Is everything okay? Do you need anything? And I'm being very serious. Like, do you need a break? Do you need to take a walk? Do you need to sit in a different classroom and decompress? Do you want to be alone? I'm here for you. Let's talk this out. Okay, I understand. Here's what we could do better next time, or just whatever, but kind. Supportive, empathetic towards myself, because that's another, hey, that just settled with me when I said that. I am very empathetic towards other people, and sometimes I don't show myself that same amount of empathy, and I'm learning to. That's what it is. It's not about cutting people off and being a tyrant. It's about balance and boundaries to protect those tender parts of myself, because I realize I don't necessarily need to change. I need to get stronger boundaries. Because I'm thinking, I got to be tougher. I got to do this so I can handle this and handle when a person does that. And I'm like, or you can just like not fucking put up with that and not expose yourself to like that behavior. Like you don't need to completely change and be like a robot, like Transformer in this bitch to put up with all this shit. You can just say, no, thank you. No, thank you. I don't have space for that. I don't have time for that. You know, I can still be loving. I can still wear my heart on my sleeve. I can still be super passionate, and love and love people and all that stuff with just tougher like, I don't have to toughen up. My boundaries need to be tougher. And, well, maybe I need to toughen up a little bit, but y'all know what I'm saying. And, I really appreciate you guys sitting with me through this mental health check-in. Let me know how y'all doing. DM me. Let me know if you need to talk. I'm down to talk. And yeah, just more self-love. Look in the mirror. Say, I love you. Ask yourself what you need today. Turn your phone off. I'm practicing doing that. It's so hard. Just turn your fucking phone off. Relax. Be around a safe person at least like once a week. Convene with somebody you feel really safe with. Non-judgmental. They're not projecting their shit onto you. They're not competing. You can laugh. If you do get in a conflict, you're both really, compassionate about it. You can move on. They hear you out. You hear them out. Y'all can hold space for each other. Safe. Someone you don't have to have a wall or a mask with. Safe. Okay, y'all. Love you.